Namaste, welcome back to your Swa kitchen. Today I want to show you how to make some gluten-free or wheat-free bread patties. Wheat has become a problematic item in our diet, not because it has anything in and of itself that can, lead to imbalances, but mainly probably because we have such a sedentary lifestyle nowadays. We're either sitting in the car driving from place to place, sitting at home watching TV, or sitting in the office in front of the computer. And wheat is one of those ingredients that needs higher agni and at least higher physical activity to be able to be broken down properly in our physiology. So a lot of people are choosing to cut wheat out of their diet, to stop eating bread. Of course, there's many different kinds of breads made with wheat that we shouldn't even be considering anyways because they were not prepared properly. But even cutting out organic, good wheat flour. And some people are just gluten intolerant, which is becoming also like a growing phenomenon. So I want to share with you, for those of you at least who feel that their meal is not complete without having a small piece of bread, but not necessarily having to deal with the sluggishness, the heaviness, the after effects of consuming bread or wheat. And this recipe is actually, it's of course formulated by Vaidya Mishra based on his SVA or Shakavansya Ayurveda precepts and wisdom. And it does have a variation. So there's one version which uses two kinds of flours. I'll be using quinoa flour and millet flour that are 100% gluten-free, very light, but may tend to have a little more of the bitter taste that you get from the millet and from the quinoa. So that's one version. And then another version you can make also by using barley and oat flour. So both of these, you may already know, do contain a little bit of gluten in them. But for those of us who can and would like to use a little bit of gluten, and because of its nutritional properties, and who don't mind having that and would like to make it that way. But the recipes are exactly identical. It's just that instead of using this set of flours, I'll be using the other set of flours. But today I want to demonstrate to you the recipe that uses the quinoa and millet flour, only because it's a little tricky in the sense that it can be a little sticky. The batter or the dough that we're going to make is not going to be like a wheat dough where, if you make it right, it won't stick on your hands. It'll just be, well shaped. And that's why I want to show you that it's okay if it's a little sticky, and how you're going to place it on your pan or your cast iron skillet so that you can, cook them. And this literally takes minutes to make, but you can also prepare the dough beforehand and you can refrigerate it for 2 to 3 days, and then just before your meal you just shape it. You don't even need to roll it out. If you're not a friend of the rolling pin, you can just shape them with your hands, and they're going to be little patties just this big, and then bake them or cook them just before you consume. So we're going to add equal parts of, let's see, this is millet flour, so I'm going to make half a cup of each. I'm going to add half a cup of each. This is half a cup millet flour, and then half a cup quinoa flour. And then this recipe does not call for ghee or oil or anything like that. Instead, I'm going to add some fresh homemade yogurt. And you don't even need to add water because the yogurt will give it the water content that is needed, and it'll make it light, it'll bind it. In addition, we're going to add some cumin seeds. Okay, some cumin seeds. And that's it. We're just going to mix this until we turn it into a dough texture. I'm going to add a little more yogurt. I'm going to turn on my pan in the meantime so it gets warm. So I like to mix it with a fork at first, because otherwise it gets all stuck on my fingers. And then once it reaches a certain consistency, then I put in my fingers. So this is that point where I can add and to make it into a dough. You don't need to let this dough sit. You can just make it and then start making your little patties right away. You can see we got a nice, perfect texture. It's actually better than I was hoping it would turn. It's not even sticking to my fingers. It's amazing because it has no gluten, but the yogurt really helps bind things together. See? Wow. Okay. Then you just pinch out a little ball and then go like this and flatten it a little bit. You can make any size you want, but don't make it too big because it'll break. This is a pretty good size, as big as your palm, I guess. And then just place it on your skillet. Let's make a few. At this point, you don't really need to add any ghee, but you could if you wanted a little more flavor, but they will bake just as nicely without any ghee. I like to add some ghee, so I'm going to add some after I put them all on my skillet. You don't want to make them too thick so that they do cook or bake inside also, but not too thin, otherwise they'll break. So here we go. One thing that I did not put in there is a pinch of salt, soma salt. Soma salt is not mandatory, but it will help ground the flavor and it balances everything. So it's nice if you want to add that, but if you're trying to keep a low salt diet, then you don't need to even add the salt. And also if you want to eat this thing with some honey maybe, or sweet, use it as a sweet bread, then you may prefer to skip on the salt, even though it won't really give it a salty taste or anything. So looks like I'm going to have just enough for 5, which will fit perfectly on my skillet. Here we go. Let me move it a little bit, and we'll put one in the middle. Hold it a little better. Here we go. So at this point, if you want to add some ghee, some nice mom's ghee, then what you can do is you can just put it around and it will slide down into the core. Just like this. I prefer to add some ghee. I mean, this ghee especially is so good. and I'm not necessarily on a ghee diet, so. And then you can put some on top if you'd like to. Just a little brush. Alright. Put it on high. And then you just have to flip them over as they're getting done. So our patties are almost done. You see they get a nice golden color. You can just flip them over. I think this one is done. I'll let the other ones keep going. And I'm going to show you my favorite way of eating these patties. I'm a high pitta, in case you haven't guessed. And this is my newest, favoriteest product by Vaidya Mishra. Rosebud petal preserve. It is so delicious. And it's even better with the bread patties that we made, the wheat-free bread patties that we made. So I'm going to put some. It's nice and thick. And then in case you're offering this to a friend, there we go. Enjoy.